She was thrown off the cliff as a human, until the Alpha King's pup chose her. The sky was a storm of gray, heavy clouds rolling like restless waves across the mountains. Rain whipped against the jagged cliffs, and the wind carried a cold that cut deeper than any blade. Arya stood at the edge of the cliff, her cloak torn and soaked, her heart pounding with fear and disbelief. She had trusted the people she called friends, the kingdom she had served faithfully, and yet here she was betrayed. Arya has betrayed the kingdom, the captain had shouted earlier, his eyes cold and accusing. She must be punished. Her own hands trembled as she realized the weight of their words. There had been whispers, rumors of treachery, lies crafted carefully to make her seem guilty. She had begged for a chance to explain, to prove her loyalty, but the council of nobles had been unmoved. The accusation was enough, and punishment had been swift. Now she faced the void. Below, jagged rocks jutted from the cliffside, and the river far beneath roared like a living beast. Her mind screamed at the unfairness of it all, at the injustice that had turned friends into enemies. And yet, no one extended a hand. No one offered mercy. The captain stepped forward, his boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. "There is no place for traitors here," he said, and his voice carried the weight of finality. Arya tried to step back, but it was too late. A shove, and the world tilted. The cliff seemed to stretch endlessly beneath her. Wind tore at her hair and clothes, rain stinging her face as she fell. Her stomach lurched. The river below, cold and merciless, rushed to meet her. Arya screamed not for herself, but for the life that had been stolen from her so suddenly, for the injustice she could not undo. The wind tore the words from her lips, and then darkness began to close around her. She hit the water with a splash that echoed like a gunshot across the valley. Pain seared through her body, and for a moment she feared she was done, life slipping away like grains of sand through fingers. But then something strange happened. The river did not drown her. Instead, it seemed to hold her, to cradle her in its icy arms. She felt a pull, a tug that lifted her from the violent current and guided her toward a small cave hidden along the riverbank. She gasped, shivering from both cold and disbelief. Her body was wet and aching, her clothes torn, but she was alive. Somehow, impossibly alive. And then she heard it. A soft, mournful whine carried on the wind, echoing from the shadows. She froze, her heart hammering, unsure if it was real or a trick of her exhausted mind. The sound came again, closer this time, desperate yet gentle. From the darkness of the cave emerged a small wolf pup. Its fur was a strange silver gray that shimmered even in the dim light, and its eyes glowed like embers. It regarded her with intelligence far beyond its size, tilting its head as if studying her very soul. Arya knelt, trembling, unsure what to do. "Are you real?" she whispered. The pup padded closer, nuzzling her hand, and for the first time since her fall she felt a spark of hope. The pup circled her, growling softly at the shadows beyond the cave, warning unseen dangers to stay away. Arya realized she was not safe, not entirely, but somehow this creature had chosen her. She could feel it in the way its tiny body pressed against her warmth, in the way it looked up at her with unwavering trust. Over the next hours, Arya tended to the pup, wrapping it in her cloak and feeding it scraps of food she had in her bag. She felt a strange connection forming, as if the pup was more than just an animal, like a guardian or a guide. And in the deep silence of the cave, she noticed something even stranger. She could hear the forest, the river, even the stones around her in ways she had never done before. The whispers of life, subtle and magical, filled her mind, and she realized with awe that something had changed. Her body, though human, seemed different. Her senses sharper, her reflexes quicker, her mind clearer despite exhaustion. The fall should have killed her. The river should have drowned her, and yet here she was, alive and more alive than ever before. Night fell and the storm raged on. Arya built a small fire to warm herself and the pup, and for a moment she allowed herself to breathe. The fear and despair that had followed her from the cliff edge began to ebb, replaced by a cautious curiosity. What had saved her? Why had she not died? And what did this strange pup want from her? Sleep came fitfully, the pup curled against her chest, a heartbeat she could feel and rely on. And in her dreams she saw visions, fragments of something vast and ancient. A shadowed figure with piercing eyes, a kingdom hidden in the mountains, wolves with silver fur moving like shadows through the forest. A voice, deep and commanding, spoke to her without words, pulling at her very soul. She woke at dawn to a silence that was almost too complete. The storm had passed, leaving the forest damp and gleaming, the river calmer now, though still powerful. The pup was already awake, its glowing eyes fixed on something beyond the cave entrance. Arya followed its gaze, her pulse quickening. In the distance, atop the mountains, a figure stood, tall, strong, and cloaked in shadows, with eyes that seemed to pierce through the mist. Her breath caught. There was something familiar about him, though she could not have said what. The pup whimpered and bounded toward the path leading to the mountains, looking back at her with a pleading gaze. It was urging her to follow. Hesitation clutched her heart. She was still weak, still human, and yet the pull was irresistible. It was as if destiny itself had taken hold of her, guiding her forward despite fear. She stepped out of the cave, feeling the wet grass beneath her feet, the wind tugging at her hair, and she began to follow. The pup led the way, leaping over rocks and fallen trees with ease, always returning to ensure she was following. Arya realized she was no longer just a mortal woman wandering the forest. She was part of something greater, something ancient and powerful. Hours passed and the terrain grew rougher. The mountains loomed closer, dark and forbidding, yet mesmerizing in their majesty. The pup paused on a rocky ledge, its glowing eyes fixed on a distant stronghold, half hidden among the cliffs and forests. The walls were carved from stone and magic, towering high, with banners that shimmered in the morning light. Arya felt a shiver run through her, not of fear but of recognition. She had seen this place before, though only in dreams or visions. As she approached, the pup suddenly stopped and growled. A shadow moved along the battlements, a figure larger than any human, with the aura of authority and danger. The Alpha King, ruler of the hidden wolf kingdom, had noticed her. Arya froze, unsure whether she should flee or continue. The pup nuzzled her hand, urging her forward, and with a deep breath she stepped into the clearing. The figure descended the stairs slowly, every movement deliberate, every step echoing against the stone. Arya felt her heart hammer in her chest. This was no ordinary man. His presence commanded the forest, the air, the very earth beneath her feet. And yet there was a sadness in his gaze, a loneliness that resonated with her own. "You," he said, his voice low and smooth, carrying a power that made her spine straighten involuntarily. "You were thrown from the cliff." Arya swallowed, her throat dry. I did not betray anyone," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the river and the morning wind. He studied her, his eyes narrowing as if weighing truth against lies, destiny against chance. "And yet you survived," he said finally. "Not all who fall return. Not all who fall are chosen." Arya's breath caught. Chosen. The word sounded both wondrous and terrifying. The pup bounded forward, circling the Alpha King and pressing itself against Arya's legs. The king's eyes softened slightly, and for the first time, Arya glimpsed a hint of warmth beneath the cold, commanding exterior. "You are linked now," he said, almost to himself. "The one who fell, and the one who was waiting." Arya felt a strange pull in her chest, a connection she could not understand. The pup had chosen her, yes, but there was more, something ancient and powerful that had marked her from the moment she had fallen. She looked up at the Alpha King, unsure what her fate would be. Fear warred with a strange excitement. Could she trust him? Could she survive in this world of wolves, kings, and magic? And most importantly, what did it mean to be chosen? The Alpha King's gaze held hers, steady and unyielding, as if he could see into the very depths of her soul. The pup whimpered, nudging her hand, and in that moment Arya realized there was no turning back. Her life had been stolen once, thrown into darkness and despair. But now a new path stretched before her, one filled with danger, mystery, and a bond that defied explanation. And as she followed the pup toward the Alpha King's stronghold, she could feel the stirrings of destiny within her, a destiny that would change her life and the world forever. Above, the clouds parted slightly, and a single shaft of sunlight fell on the pup, on her, and on the distant mountains, as if the world itself acknowledged that she had survived. And in the shadows, the Alpha King watched, his thoughts unreadable, his heart stirred by the mortal who had defied death, and who had been chosen in ways neither of them fully understood. The journey had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The mountains rose like silver sentinels against the early morning sky, their peaks disappearing into clouds that seemed to touch the heavens. Arya followed the small pup along narrow paths carved into the cliffs, her body sore and tired, but her heart strangely light. The pup moved with grace, leaping over rocks and roots, always pausing to ensure she could follow. The Alpha King's stronghold grew nearer, hidden among jagged cliffs and dense forests. It was a fortress unlike any Arya had ever imagined. Stone walls twisted around ancient trees, carved with runes that glowed faintly in the soft morning light. Bridges of silvered wood spanned over rushing streams, and statues of wolves, some enormous and some small, seemed to watch her every move. Arya felt both awe and fear. This was not a kingdom for ordinary humans. And yet the pup nudged her forward, its small body trembling with urgency. As she approached the gates, two enormous wolves stepped forward. Their fur was a deep black, shining like polished obsidian, and their eyes glowed amber. They were majestic, powerful, and completely unlike any creature she had ever seen. Arya froze, instinct urging her to flee, but the pup barked softly, nuzzling her hand. "They will not harm you," a voice said from above. Arya looked up, startled. The Alpha King stood on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. His presence was commanding, almost magnetic, and even from this distance she could feel the pull of his power. "You are alive," he said, his voice low and smooth. "Few survive what you did. Fewer still are chosen." Arya swallowed hard. I do not know why I survived," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It should have ended me." The king's gaze softened slightly, though it still held the weight of authority. "There is a reason," he said. "The fates are not so cruel as to allow destiny to be denied." The pup ran ahead, through the gates, and Arya followed. Inside, the courtyard was alive with motion. Wolves of all sizes patrolled the stone paths, some speaking in low, murmured voices that sounded almost human. Arya's eyes widened in wonder. This was not just a kingdom of wolves. It was a kingdom where the line between the ordinary and the magical had been blurred. A young wolf, taller than Arya herself, approached. Its fur was silver, and its eyes carried wisdom far beyond its years. "You have come far," it said, in a voice that was both gentle and firm. "The Alpha King has been expecting you." Arya looked at the pup, which barked softly in agreement. The path led up a stone staircase carved into the mountain itself. Each step seemed to hum with energy, and Arya felt the magic around her tighten like a pulse. She was no longer merely mortal. Something had changed inside her. She could feel the whispers of the forest, the heartbeat of the earth, and even the subtle presence of the Alpha King before she could see him. At the top, the Alpha King waited. He did not smile, but there was a faint warmth in his eyes. "Step forward," he commanded. "You are safe here, though not yet fully accepted." Arya's heart pounded. She had no idea what this meant or how she could ever belong in a place like this. And yet she could not turn back. She had survived a fall meant to end her life. She had been chosen by a pup that seemed more than ordinary. She had to see this through. The king circled her slowly, his eyes studying her as if reading every secret she had ever held. "You are different," he said finally. "I can feel it. Your pulse, your energy, you are no longer entirely human. And yet you are not fully of the forest either. This balance, this choice was not made lightly." Arya swallowed. I do not understand." He paused, his gaze intense. "Few do at first. You survived because you are part of something greater. The bond you share with that pup is no accident. You are linked to me and to the fate of this kingdom." The pup whined, circling her legs and pressing its small body against her. Arya reached down to touch it, feeling warmth and life flow through her fingers. The connection was electric, strange and beautiful, and she realized with a shiver that this pup was the key to her survival and perhaps to everything that lay ahead. "You have a gift," the king said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "And that gift is both a blessing and a danger. Many will want to use it, many will fear it, and yet only you can control it." Arya's mind swirled with questions. What gift? Why had she survived? And why did the Alpha King speak of danger and destiny as if they were things she could understand? Before she could ask, the ground trembled slightly. A low growl rumbled through the courtyard, and Arya felt a strange vibration beneath her feet. Wolves moved swiftly, forming a protective circle around her and the king. From the shadows beyond the walls, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked, with eyes that glinted with malice. "Who is that?" Arya whispered, fear prickling along her spine. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. "Enemies," he said simply. "Those who would see this kingdom fall and you with it. They know of your survival, they know of your bond, they will try to take it from you." The pup growled, small but ferocious. Arya felt its courage like a shield steadying her. She had faced betrayal, she had fallen from a cliff, she had survived the river, and now she would face this too. "You are strong," the king said, stepping closer. "Stronger than you realize, and soon you will need to be stronger still." Arya nodded, unsure what he meant but trusting the words because of the calm authority in his voice. The pup nuzzled her again, and she smiled faintly. For the first time since she had been thrown from the cliff, she felt not fear but a spark of hope. The Alpha King gestured for her to follow him. They walked through the stronghold, past courtyards filled with wolves, through halls lined with tapestries that told the history of the kingdom in images and runes. Arya felt the pulse of magic everywhere, subtle but undeniable, as if the walls themselves were alive. Finally, they reached a chamber carved into the mountain. It was circular, with a domed ceiling that opened to the sky. Runes glowed softly on the walls, and at the center, a small pool reflected the morning light. The pup ran to the edge and barked, looking up at Arya as if urging her to see something. Arya knelt by the pool, peering into the water. At first she saw only her reflection, pale, wet, and exhausted. But then the image shifted. She saw visions of the Alpha King, of battles fought in shadowed forests, of wolves moving like shadows over mountains, of a kingdom threatened by forces beyond mortal understanding. And then she saw herself, standing beside him not as a servant, not as a mortal, but as someone powerful, connected, and chosen. The Alpha King's voice broke her concentration. "You see now why you survived," he said softly. "The bond is more than life and death. It is destiny. And it begins with this pup." Arya turned to look at him, her heart racing. "But what does it mean?" "It means," he said, his gaze steady and unyielding, "that your life is no longer your own. You are linked to me, to this kingdom, and to the forces that shape our world. That link will be tested, and you will be tested, but I will guide you for now." The pup whimpered again, circling her, and Arya felt the truth of his words in the warmth of its small body. She was no longer alone. She was part of something vast, ancient, and powerful. And she would need all her courage, all her strength to survive what lay ahead. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the stronghold. Arya jumped, her hand gripping the pup tightly. The Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "They are here," he said, "the enemies I spoke of. We must be ready." Wolves moved into position around them, their eyes glowing with determination. Arya felt fear rising, but it was tempered by a new sense of purpose. She had survived death. She had been chosen. And now she would face whatever came next. The Alpha King's gaze met hers, sharp and commanding but also protective. "Stay close," he said, "and trust in the bond. You will need it." Arya nodded, her heart pounding in time with the pup's soft whine. She was no longer the woman who had been thrown from a cliff. She was alive, chosen, and part of something far greater than herself. And as shadows moved along the edges of the courtyard, she knew that her journey had only just begun. The pup barked and the Alpha King's eyes glinted. "Let them come," he said, voice low and powerful. "Let them see what it means to challenge the bond between the chosen and the Alpha King." Arya swallowed hard, feeling fear, awe, and an unexpected thrill. She did not yet understand the depth of the magic that tied her to this place, or the secrets the Alpha King kept. But she knew one thing for certain: she would not run. Not now. Not ever. And as the first figures of the enemy appeared at the edge of the stronghold, the pup barked loudly, standing beside her with courage far beyond its size. Arya felt a spark of determination. She had survived a fall meant to kill her. She had been chosen by destiny. And now she would face whatever came next, side by side with the pup and under the watchful eyes of the Alpha King. The storm had passed, but the battle had just begun. The sun rose over the mountains, casting golden light across the stone walls of the Alpha King's stronghold. Arya stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching the wolves move with precision, their paws silent against the stone. She had never seen creatures so powerful and disciplined, yet there was something in their eyes, something almost human, that made her feel both awe and unease. The pup circled her legs, its small body vibrating with excitement. Arya smiled faintly, feeling a strange warmth spread through her chest. This tiny creature had saved her life, guided her through the mountains, and brought her to a world she could barely comprehend. And now, it seemed, it was more than just her companion. It was her link to the Alpha King, and through him, to the destiny that waited for her. The Alpha King appeared suddenly, descending the steps with silent grace. He moved like a shadow, yet his presence was undeniable, commanding attention from every wolf and human alike. Arya felt a shiver run through her, not from fear, but from the intensity of his gaze. "You have rested," he said, his voice calm but sharp. "Good. You will need your strength for what comes next." Arya nodded, unsure what to say. I am ready," she whispered, though her heart beat rapidly in her chest. "Ready?" he echoed, arching an eyebrow. "You have survived a fall, you have traveled through the forest, and yet you still do not understand the challenges you will face. Strength is not enough. You will need courage, cunning, and loyalty." The pup barked softly, circling them both. Arya bent down and stroked its fur, feeling a wave of reassurance. "I will do whatever I must," she said firmly. The Alpha King's eyes softened slightly, though the commanding edge remained. "Good, then follow me." He led her through the halls of the stronghold, past chambers carved into the mountain rock, each glowing with faint runes and symbols she could not decipher. Wolves of various sizes and colors observed them, some stepping aside respectfully, others watching with curiosity. Arya felt the weight of their eyes and realized that everyone here knew of her arrival. She was not simply a guest. She was a participant in something far greater. Finally, they reached a courtyard where the Alpha King halted. At its center was a stone circle, etched with intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with light. The pup ran ahead, circling the markings excitedly. "This is where you will learn," the king said, gesturing for Arya to step forward. "You will learn the rules of the pack, the power that flows through this kingdom, and the bond that ties us all together." Arya hesitated, glancing at the glowing circle. "Learn what exactly?" she asked. "The magic of the land, the strength of the pack, and the truth of your destiny," he replied. "But be warned, knowledge comes at a price. You will be tested not only by your abilities but by your heart. Arya's stomach twisted. She had survived betrayal and a fall meant to kill her, yet this felt like a trial unlike any other. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange thrill. She had come too far to turn back now. The Alpha King extended a hand and the pup leaped into it briefly before bounding back to her side. "Your first test," he said, "is of trust." He pointed to the circle. As Arya stepped inside, the symbols glowed brighter and she felt the air thrum around her. The world shifted. She was no longer in the courtyard. Instead, she found herself in a shadowed forest, the trees tall and twisted, their branches like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. Mist curled around her feet and distant howls echoed through the darkness. Arya's heart raced. She had never seen this place before, yet it felt strangely familiar. The pup stayed close, its small body glowing faintly, offering comfort. "Do not fear," the Alpha King's voice said, though he was not visible. "You must face what lies within. Only then will you understand your connection to this kingdom." Suddenly, shadows emerged from the mist, wolves with eyes like burning coals, moving with unnatural speed and precision. Arya instinctively stepped back, fear gripping her. But the pup barked, its voice strong despite its size, and she felt courage rise within her. "You are stronger than you realize," the Alpha King said. "Do not let fear control you." Arya took a deep breath and stepped forward. The wolves lunged, but she moved with a speed and grace she did not know she possessed. She dodged and weaved, guided by instinct and an unseen force. Every movement felt natural, as if she had always known how to fight, how to survive. The shadows dissolved as quickly as they appeared, leaving her alone in the misted forest. She fell to her knees, gasping for breath, the pup nuzzling her hand in reassurance. "You see now," the Alpha King's voice said, closer this time, "you are no longer just a mortal. You have the strength of the forest, the courage of the pack, and the bond of destiny. But this is only the beginning." Arya looked up, trying to see him. A figure appeared in the mist, tall and imposing, yet familiar. His eyes held both challenge and curiosity, and she felt a strange pull toward him. She had survived the fall, the river, and the forest, yet now she realized that her greatest challenge would not be the magic or the enemies. It would be understanding him and herself. The vision faded and Arya found herself back in the courtyard. The symbols in the stone circle dimmed, but a strange warmth remained in her chest, as if something powerful had awakened. "You have done well," the Alpha King said, finally stepping beside her. His presence was overwhelming yet comforting. The test of trust is not only about bravery, it is about understanding the bond. The pup chose you, but you must choose the path ahead. Arya nodded, still trying to catch her breath. I choose to learn," she said. "Good," he replied, his gaze lingering on her. "Because enemies will come. Those who wish to harm you, to use your bond for their gain, will not rest, and you must be ready to face them." Fear tightened in her chest. She had already faced death once. Could she survive betrayal again? And yet she felt a strange confidence. She had survived the impossible before. She would survive this too. Days passed, and Arya trained under the watchful eye of the Alpha King. She learned to move with the wolves, to understand their language, to sense the currents of magic that flowed through the stronghold. She discovered a strength within herself she had never known, and with each passing day, the bond between her and the pup deepened. The Alpha King watched her closely, his expressions unreadable. Sometimes his gaze was sharp, commanding, and Arya felt the weight of authority pressing down on her. Other times, there were moments when his eyes softened, revealing a vulnerability he kept hidden from the world. She did not understand these shifts, yet she could not look away. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Arya found herself alone with the Alpha King. The pup slept at her feet, exhausted from the day's lessons. "You have improved," he said quietly, his voice softer than usual. "But improvement is not enough. The world is dangerous, and not all who survive the forest survive the heart. Arya felt her pulse quicken. The heart? She asked. He stepped closer, the glow of the sunset casting light across his face. The heart is where trust, courage, and choice reside. It is where bonds are tested. And yours is already being tested. Arya looked down, unsure how to respond. The words struck her deeply, stirring feelings she could not name. Fear, yes, but also something else, something she felt every time he was near, a strange pull that she could neither resist nor fully understand. Before she could speak, a shadow passed across the courtyard. Arya turned, her heart leaping. Figures moved at the edge of the stronghold, cloaked and menacing. Her stomach twisted with fear, but the pup leaped forward, barking fiercely. The Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "They have come," he said. "Enemies of the pack, enemies of destiny. And now you will face them." Arya swallowed hard, fear and determination warring within her. She had survived betrayal and death, and now she would face those who sought to harm her and the Alpha King's kingdom. The bond between her and the pup glowed faintly, a reminder that she was not alone, that she had been chosen for this moment. The Alpha King's gaze met hers, sharp and commanding. "Stay close," he said, "and trust in the bond. You will need it." Arya nodded, gripping the pup in her arms. The courtyard fell into tense silence, broken only by the distant footsteps of those who had come to challenge them. She felt fear, yes, but also a strange exhilaration. She had survived the impossible before. She could survive this. And as the first cloaked figures stepped into the light, she realized that the test of heart, courage, and trust had only just begun. The Alpha King moved beside her, silent and imposing, and the pup barked once, small but fierce. Arya felt the warmth of the bond between them all and knew, without doubt, that she would face whatever came next. The stronghold was alive with tension. Shadows moved at the edges. The test had begun. And Arya, chosen by destiny, would not falter. The morning mist clung to the mountains, softening the jagged edges of the cliffs and forests. The Alpha King's stronghold stood tall and silent, its stone walls glowing faintly with runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Arya stood at the edge of the courtyard, the pup at her side, her chest rising and falling with steady determination. Yesterday, shadows had crept close, enemies who sought to destroy the kingdom and claim the bond she shared with the pup, and by extension the Alpha King. But now the dawn brought a sense of clarity. The air was thick with magic, yet calm, as if the world itself paused to watch the events about to unfold. The Alpha King approached, silent as the wind through the trees. His dark eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, all the command and authority faded, replaced by a quiet intensity that left her breathless. She had trained under his watchful gaze, learned the rhythms of the pack, and faced challenges she could never have imagined. Yet even now, standing beside him, her heart raced. "You are ready," he said softly. "Whatever comes, you will not face it alone." Arya nodded, gripping the pup close. The small creature nuzzled her hand, its warmth a reminder that she had survived impossible odds before, and that she could survive again. From the shadows of the forest, a rustle announced the arrival of the first of the enemy forces. Figures emerged, cloaked and menacing, moving with unnatural precision. Their leader stepped forward, a figure taller than the rest, radiating cold authority. Arya felt a shiver run through her, but the Alpha King's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Trust in the bond," he said, "and remember, fear is the enemy of action." The pup barked fiercely, small but fearless, and Arya felt a surge of courage. She had been chosen, guided, and trained for this moment. She would not falter. The enemies charged. Wolves and humans alike moved in unison, a dance of magic and strength. Arya followed instinct, moving with speed and grace she had never known before. The forest seemed to bend around her, guiding her movements, and the pup darted alongside her, its glowing eyes a beacon of light in the shadowed battlefield. Arya's hands glowed faintly with the magic she had learned to channel, a subtle but powerful force that allowed her to protect herself and those around her. The enemies faltered as her power touched them, a wave of energy that forced them back. She realized then that the bond with the pup, and through it, the Alpha King, was stronger than any force they could muster. The Alpha King moved like a shadow, striking with precision and power. His presence alone seemed to sway the tide of the battle, yet he never lost sight of her. Every move she made, he was there, a silent guardian, a steady force. And in that, Arya felt the depth of their connection, a bond that was both magical and emotional, something that went beyond words. The leader of the enemy approached, and the Alpha King stepped forward to meet him. Arya's heart pounded. She knew that this confrontation would decide not only the fate of the kingdom, but also the destiny that had chosen her. The fight was swift and brutal. The Alpha King's strength was unmatched, and yet he moved with restraint, striking only to protect and defend. Arya found herself in the thick of it, her courage guiding her, her power protecting her, and the pup darting around her feet, fearless and determined. Suddenly, the leader lunged toward Arya. Time seemed to slow. She braced herself, her hands glowing with energy, ready to defend the pup. But in that instant, the Alpha King's shadow fell across her, a wall of protection. He moved faster than her eyes could follow, intercepting the enemy and forcing him back with a power that shook the ground. "You are mine," the Alpha King said, his voice low, fierce, and commanding, "and no one will take what destiny has bound." The enemies faltered, fear glinting in their eyes. The bond between Arya, the pup, and the Alpha King radiated strength, a force that no outside power could break. Slowly, the intruders retreated, melting into the shadows of the forest. Silence returned, broken only by the wind and the soft breathing of the wolves. Arya sank to her knees, the pup curling into her lap, exhausted but alive. The Alpha King stepped beside her, his dark eyes softening as he studied her. "You did well," he said quietly. "Braver than I could have imagined." Arya looked up at him, her chest still heaving. We survived," she whispered. "But why me? Why was I chosen?" The Alpha King's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability flickering across his features. "Because you are not ordinary," he said. "You have the heart to survive, the courage to fight, and the bond that cannot be broken. You are part of this kingdom now, and part of me." Arya's breath caught. The words carried weight she could barely understand, but she felt their truth in the warmth of the pup at her side, in the steady presence of the Alpha King, and in the pulse of destiny that flowed through her veins. The pup barked softly, and Arya reached down to stroke its fur. We did it," she said, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. The pup nuzzled her hand as if affirming her words. The Alpha King stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, yet he did not touch her. His gaze held hers, commanding yet gentle, a mix of power and care that made her pulse quicken. "This is only the beginning," he said. "Your journey, our journey, has only just begun. There will be more challenges, more trials, but together we are stronger than anything the world can throw at us." Arya nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She had survived death, betrayal, and the trials of the forest. She had learned strength, courage, and the power of the bond that tied her to the pup and to the Alpha King. And now she understood something deeper. She was no longer the same person who had been thrown from the cliff. She had been transformed, chosen for a destiny that was larger than her own life. The Alpha King's eyes softened further, and for the first time he allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Come," he said. "There is much to show you, much to teach you. The kingdom awaits, and with it your place within it." Arya rose, the pup following her eagerly. She glanced at the stronghold, at the walls carved with magic and history, and felt a sense of belonging she had never known. She was part of something larger, something eternal. As they walked through the halls, the Alpha King spoke of the history of the kingdom, of the magic that protected it, and of the lineage of wolves that had ruled it for centuries. Arya listened, absorbing every word, every story, every lesson. And with each step, she felt her bond with the Alpha King and the pup grow stronger, a connection that went beyond words or understanding, a bond that would shape the future of both their worlds. Days turned into weeks, and Arya's strength and confidence grew. She learned to harness her power, to move with the wolves, and to understand the flow of magic in the world around her. The pup remained at her side, loyal and fearless, a constant reminder of the destiny that had chosen her. And through it all, the Alpha King watched, guiding her, teaching her, and protecting her. Their connection deepened, a bond that was unspoken yet undeniable. Arya felt it in every glance, every word, every moment of silence between them. A bond that was both magical and deeply human, a connection of trust, respect, and something more. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Arya stood at the edge of the cliffs where she had once fallen. The pup sat beside her, looking up at her with bright eyes, and the Alpha King stepped beside her, silent and imposing. "You have grown," he said quietly, his voice carrying a warmth that made her heart race. "Stronger, wiser, braver. You are no longer the mortal who fell from the cliff. You are something more, something chosen." Arya felt a shiver run through her. I never understood before," she said softly. "I thought I was alone, that I had nothing, but now I see. I was never alone, and I am not afraid anymore." The Alpha King's gaze softened and he extended a hand. Arya took it, feeling the strength and warmth in his grip, the weight of destiny and trust. The pup barked happily, circling them, a symbol of their bond. "You are part of this kingdom," he said, "part of me, and together we will face whatever comes." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it a sense of promise, of hope, and of new beginnings. Arya looked out over the mountains, at the forests and rivers, at the kingdom that had become her home, and she felt the pulse of destiny within her. She had survived the impossible, faced betrayal and danger, and emerged stronger, braver, and chosen. And in that moment she knew the truth. She was not just alive. She was part of something eternal, a bond that could not be broken, a destiny that could not be denied. The Alpha King stepped closer, and for the first time his eyes revealed the depth of his heart, a mixture of power, vulnerability, and unspoken longing. Arya felt the same stirring within herself, a connection that went beyond words, beyond magic, beyond fate. The pup barked softly, nuzzling her hand one last time before bounding ahead. Arya and the Alpha King stood side by side, looking out over the kingdom that stretched before them, the mountains glowing in the light of dawn. "You were never just a mortal," he said, his voice carrying across the cliffs. "You are the pulse of this kingdom and my heart." Arya's eyes glistened and she nodded. "And I will not turn away from it, from you, from this bond." The wind carried their words into the sky, mixing with the soft glow of the morning. The journey had been long, filled with danger, fear, and trials. But it had also brought strength, courage, and love, a love that was pure, unbroken, and eternal. Together, Arya, the pup, and the Alpha King stood at the edge of the cliffs, ready to face whatever the future held. The kingdom awaited, the magic thrummed through the air, and the bond they shared radiated with power, hope, and the promise of destiny fulfilled. And as the sun rose fully, casting golden light over the mountains and forests, Arya felt a sense of peace, strength, and belonging she had never known. She had fallen, she had survived, she had been chosen. And now she was home.